Thanks for joining us on our bulletin tonight. Our sign language interpreter is Maresha Owiti. Former Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru can tonight breathe a sigh of relief after the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission cleared her over the 791 million shillings corruption allegations in the National Youth Service. In a letter to the head of public service, the EACC says investigations have not established any evidence to warrant an adverse recommendation against her. Waiguru says she is extremely grateful to God that the truth has finally come out.
Waiguru, her exit from government was anything but smooth. The first cabinet secretary for the Devolution and Planning Ministry, she headed one of the most well-funded ministries and oversaw the restructuring of the National Youth Service, establishment of Huduma centers, and the 30% procurement rule. But the successes would be overshadowed and trouble would come knocking following corruption allegations over the loss of 791 million shillings at the National Youth Service. She faced mounting pressure to resign, not only at press conferences and political rallies, but also with an impeachment motion. Waiguru, who appeared before the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over the corruption allegations, would throw in the towel in November last year, citing doctors' advice.
I have therefore, following my doctor's advice, requested His Excellency the President to relieve me of the responsibilities of Cabinet Secretary, Devolution and Planning, and should he find it fit to accord me such lighter duties.
But even after she resigned, matters were not any lighter, with detectives raiding her house. But now Anne Waiguru can breathe a sigh of relief after getting a clean bill from the country's anti-corruption watchdog, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. In a letter titled Investigations in Respect of Former Cabinet Secretary Anne Mumbi Waiguru by the EACC Chief Executive Halake Wako to the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Joseph Kenywa, the Commission says it has conducted investigations on various allegations touching on National Youth Service and the Ministry of Devolution and National Planning. So far, investigations have not established any evidence to warrant any adverse recommendation against the former Cabinet Secretary Anne Mumbi Waiguru, says the letter dated the 4th of January. For Anne Waiguru,
I can only say I'm extremely grateful to God. Finally, the truth is out. And I pray that no woman or man has to go through what I went through without any foundation whatsoever. I'm extremely relieved and I thank God.
Waiguru, who has been contemplating running for elective office, says she has no immediate plans for now.
I'm just at this point just relieved, you know. We'll wait, we'll pray. I've been saying I'm seeking counsel. I'm waiting to hear. I want to see what the advice that I'll be given by people who matter to me, and from there we'll take a decision on the way forward.
For Waiguru, who has been in the civil service for over a decade, the clearance by the EACC was the clean bill she has been hoping for after corruption allegations left her civil service career record hanging in the balance. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Good news for former Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru, just as Justice Tunoi begins to face his battles at the judiciary. So we just want to take a look at how far he has come. And we're calling this the 9 lives of Tunoi because he has survived quite a bit. Now, before we even get started, let me just tell you about this individual. He's the most senior member of the Supreme Court. 29 and a half years of continuous service in the judiciary, started off in the High Court, rising through the ranks to the Supreme Court judge. He was earning 22,000 when he started, now earning 750,000 shillings as a Supreme Court judge. Now, when Aaron Ringera looked into the conduct of judges, about half of them were sent home. He was able to survive that one. Came the second round now, headed by Justice Sharad Rao, that's the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. He was able to survive that one. Now, let me just give you some background on this. At this point now, the Supreme Court had come into being and they promised to take a look at some of the cases that people had issues with in the judiciary. The Rai family and the media owner SK Macharia had raised complaints against Tunoi at that point. Now, when he went before the Sharad Rao committee, he said that if given a chance, he would would make things right. Now remember, in that case against Rai, the Ripley company in Eldoret, he had recused himself twice before. But when it came before him at the Supreme Court, he chose to sit on the bench. And lawyer Feroz Noriji asked him to disqualify himself because he had recused himself twice before. He claimed he didn't remember why he had recused himself in the first place and therefore sat on that case. And this was after he was in the clear after the vetting that was done by Justice Sharad Rao. He then dismissed those appeals by both Rai and Macharia. That was stage 2. Now here we are. A pending court case on his retirement. Supposed to retire at the age of 70. He is now 72. When the JSC made that directive to him, he refused. Now, there's also a bit of a conundrum here because there was a case, of course, the one that was filed by Nick Salat in the Bomet senatorial case, and his lawyer wrote to the CJ in confidence, asking whether the cases against or the impending retirement of Rawal and Tunoy would affect the case. They then used this letter in their own petition to say that the JSC had no standing and no powers over the judges. The CJ, of course, reprimanded them for this one. That case remains in court. He remains on the bench because of court rulings that allow him to continue to serve whilst this case is being determined. Here we are now. The JSC has asked the president to form that tribunal to investigate him. On this, the president has no choice according to law. He has 14 days to put that tribunal together. Whether he will face the tribunal, he has said this weekend that he will do that. Well, let us see whether he will go before the tribunal. Now, what's interesting is that should he choose to retire, he will take home a lump sum of 22 million shillings. And he claims he has 15 million shillings in savings and 2,000 goats that he will retire to, should it come to that. Will he face the tribunal? Which way for him? Well, we will be getting comment on this from someone who's made some own allegations of his own. Was it 200 million shillings or was it more? We will have Senior Counsel Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi to talk more about this developing matter in the judiciary, as well as, of course, the case against Anne Waiguru. So please do stay with us for more on that as he'll be joining us there. Let's move to matters politics now. President Uhuru Kenyatta has announced that the National Youth Service Empowerment Project is set to make a comeback later this month. The president spoke in Kisumu on his 6th visit to the region since he was elected. And as Victor Ogale now reports, the visit is viewed as one of Jubilee's campaign strategies ahead of the 2017 general election.
President Uhuru Kenyatta for the 6th time returned to Kisumu City, a town that is now considered more of a regular among the country's political leadership. From Kisumu International Airport, an eagerly waiting crowd at the Obunga slums could not let the president's motorcade pass by without him saying a word. Uhuru did not disappoint as he promised to fast-track the return of the National Youth Service Empowerment Program, where major beneficiaries or residents of informal settlements such as Obunga, Nyalenda and Manyata.
By the end of this month, huo mradi utaanza tena na utakuwa hapa kwenu, na sio hapa kwenu peke yake, kwa sababu tunataka kufungusha huyo mradi kila kona ya Kenya. Tumkaribishe Mheshimiwa Rais kwa makofi anapo.
At the host venue where Uhuru was the official guest of the opening ceremony of the 7th-day Adventist West Kenya Conference Center in Kanyakwar. The message of popularizing Jubilee Party was also reiterated by some of the legislators present.
To deal with strictly issues that affect the day-to-day lives, rather than focusing on personalities and ethnicities.
Your father, the late Kenyatta, worked together with the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and destiny brought us together to a point where President Uhuru Kenyatta is working with the leader of opposition, Raila Amolo Odinga. How it would be good for the president to lead and work together with him to take this county to where it was supposed to be.
On his part, Uhuru said that the government will work hand in hand with the churches and will further ensure that the contentious issues in the proposed media bill are amended.
And I instructed the Attorney General that he must suspend those regulations. Suspend them and let the church and religious leaders take the forefront. But we want to work with the church to help us uproot those evil men and women who use the name of God to to take advantage of our poor citizens in this country and to fleece them of money. I don't need to mention them. Mimi yote mnawajua.
The new facility will be in charge of 16 counties in Western Kenya. President Uhuru Kenyatta promised to donate 2 million shillings towards the Seventh-day Adventist. President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit to Kisumu City has come with goodies after the head of state announced that the National Youth Service Youth Empowerment Project is set to make a comeback later this year, in which Kisumu was one of the beneficiaries. Victor Ogale, KTN News, Kanyakwar, in the county of Kisumu.